There's different kinds of light. There is hard light and soft light. Right now, everything is in soft light. All of the lights we have here are soft, diffused lights. If you look at the picture, hard light casts stark shadows. Soft light kind of wraps around things and makes them look very soft. It's much more gentle. If you look at something like a face, we tend to want to avoid hard light because it makes you look old. So the one on the light is hard light, the one on the right is soft. So hard light casts very dramatic, stark shadows. There's fewer grayscales. Who doesn't know what I mean when I say grayscale? Okay, that's fine. So that's actually one of the other tools I'm going to show you tonight. That's this tool. It's a gradient tool. So grayscale is, you've got 0% gray, which is white. And sometimes this is reversed too, by the way. Depends on who you talk to. So you've got 0% gray, which is white. You've got 100% gray, which is black. And then in the middle here, you've got 50% gray, which is like perfectly medium gray. And then everything in between. So this is called the gray scale. It's, we talked about tone last week. So it's how dark something is. So just a refresher, and then I'll hand this out to you guys in a minute and show you how to use it. But just a refresher, the tone on this, like if I took a picture of this Coke can and made it black and white, the red is going to look darker than this. This is a lighter color on the gray, or lighter tone on the gray scale than the red is on the gray scale. So when I make color and I make it black and white, it's how dark it is, basically, to make it simple. So if you look at the pictures of the face, the one that's in hard light, there's fewer shades of gray in between, right? She's got a hard, dark gray line here, and there's not a lot of blending in between. Her eyes, her irises, they almost look black in this picture. In this picture, I don't know if we can zoom in a little bit more. You can see there's a little bit more differentiation in the tones. Like there's a little bit of light gray over here that you can't see over here. If you look at her nose, there's lots of lighter shades of gray on the side here, and there's just almost black on this side. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, whether you want to, and you can use the quality of light, so we call that the quality of light, right? If it's hard or soft, you can use the quality of your light. Also, there's warm and cold, but we'll talk about that when we get to color. You can use that to tell your story, right? If you look at old paintings, lots of dark, like you'll see a lot of dark faces and the shadows, they're usually the bad guys. If you look at old pictures of Jesus on like being taken to the cross, like he's usually like very brightly lit and everybody around him is real dark in the shadows. So you can use your light to tell part of your story of what you're trying, the mood you're trying to capture in your picture. Okay. And the other thing I want to talk about is the angle of light. I want to make sure that we can all identify the angle of light. Let's start with this one. Where is this light coming from? Behind her, right? We call this a rim light. It's coming from behind her. She's backlit, okay? You're rarely going to use light like this when you're drawing pictures. This is usually used for photography, but it can be very beautiful if used correctly. Okay, if we look at this picture, which is the light coming from the left or the right side of the right. From the right? Is it coming more from above or more from below? So the light's coming this angle?
No, above.
It's coming that angle, okay? So you guys already know how to identify the angle of light. I'm just showing you that you do. The other thing that I want you to look at is, where is this little light spot coming from?
Bouncing off of the other object.
Yeah, there's a cone here that's white and it's bouncing the white light back. How about this one here? So at the bottom of that sphere. So you see how it's like light here, and then it kind of becomes very dark here, and then it becomes lighter again? Can you see that?
Yeah. Bouncing off the table?
It's bouncing off the floor. It's bouncing back off the floor. And you see like it's very dark at the bottom of the sphere again. That's because this part of the floor is reflecting over here on the sphere, and this part of the floor is reflecting over there. There's a name for that, and I forget what it is. It'll come to me later, and then I'll tell you. But okay, so that's something that I wanted to show you guys. How about this one? Where's the light coming from? From the left, from the top, or the bottom?
From top.
Yeah, it's a little bit more, it's not like this, it's like at that angle.
Swooping down from the left.
Yeah. Is it hard light or soft light?
Soft.
Yeah, it's more towards the soft light. You see how it wraps around the objects versus the last one that was a lot harder and it actually bounces some of that reflection back. Okay? And then, of course, metal, as you guys noticed last week, behaves differently when you bounce light off of it, when you shine light on it. Metal tends to reflect, or shiny surfaces tend to reflect your light source back at you. It tends to make a lot sharper lines, right? Like you guys realized with the Coke can. Okay. By the way, I watched the video and it sounds like I say cocaine the whole time. I noticed. Sorry, that's the accent. There's nothing I can do about it. Okay. That's all I'm going to talk about here for now. Okay. I'm done talking now. Okay, so let's look at a sphere again. And we're going to look at it with different light. So this would be, this sphere, it's a beach ball, obviously. It's a little bit shiny, so you can actually see the reflections of the light sources in the sphere. So this would be a softer light. And that is a harder light. So look at the quality of the shadow. Can everybody see the shadow underneath the sphere? Okay, so look at how the shadow changes from that light to this one.
Much more of a bigger shadow with a harder light.
It's not a bigger shadow. There's the same amount of shadow. It's just the edge of the shadow, right? So you can't really see where is the edge of the shadow here. Like there's definitely shadow here. There's some shadow there, but you can't really tell like where the edge of the shadow is. And
With the hard light, it's much more, you can tell exactly where the edge is.
yeah. So if I put the hard light back there, you can tell exactly where the edge of the shadow is. So again, what are you trying to say in your drawings? This is going to be more important when we get to gestalt or composition, stuff like that later on, but I do want to mention it to you guys now. Okay. Then, and don't worry, you don't have to know fancy German words. Maybe because of the printer, maybe because of me. Okay, so this is a very useful tool. Obviously, our printer is not the best because it didn't actually print the black, but this is pretty perfect for pencils because it's about as dark as you're going to get with a pencil. So this is an example of how you can use this gradient. Obviously, I did this upside down. So this was, I tested how dark and how light can I go with an 8B and a brush. So I colored in with my 8B and then I went over with my brush. So this is a really good way to test your mediums. The B does not want to go to 90%. It does not want to go to 100%. It's too light of a pencil. I couldn't make that gray tone of gray. Does that make sense? So I printed it on the paper that we are drawing on for you guys. So I want to encourage you to use this tonight to test out your mediums. But then there's another helpful thing that you can do with this, and that is to actually punch holes well, I guess I should have thought about that. So if you actually use a, I guess this is a star hole punch, but it doesn't really matter. So if you actually punch a hole in each one of the different shades, and you want to look at an object and see how dark is it, then I can kind of look and I can see, okay, over there, where is my darkest tone? So that's probably where it's going to be, where I'm going to use the 100% gray. Does that make any sense? No? Okay, that's fine. So another tool that you can also use, training wheels, let me give it to you guys another way. It might help if I actually look at a gray object. So I came bearing bricks. I brought my own brick. Okay. So you might be able to just fold the paper too. So fold it like this, and then let's say I'm drawing this plane of the brick. Then I can kind of compare it to all the marks I can make with my pencil, and I go, okay, this is close to about the 40%. That's the closest one. So I need to use about 40% hardness to get that color. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? Okay, so this is a...
Translate 40% into the pencil number.
That's what these are for. That's what these extra blocks are for. So you can, so you know I need to use about 40%, and then you can use on this, you can try to match 40%. So then you know how hard you need to press.
Okay.
So it's training wheels I'm giving you. You don't have to use this. It's a tool you can use if you want to. It's a little, it gets a little harder when you're looking at something that's a color. So there, if you have a smartphone, then if you go on an Android, you go to the top right corner, it's got filters. I don't know how you do this on an Apple. You'll have to ask somebody else. But then you can actually look at the world. What would the world look like in black and white? So you can use this as a handy tool to translate the world to black and white if you can't see it that way. So, and then you can actually sit there with your tool and your grayscale and do it that way too. So those are tools. Now we've spent a lot of time talking about tools, and I'm tired. Okay, you guys want to learn something new?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. So, okay. So, I mean, hopefully you're learning lots of new things, but yeah. Okay, so tonight I'm going to teach you how to use something called the reductive drawing technique. So we're going to use charcoal for that. So reductive, reduce, minus, make less. Right up to now we've taken a light surface and used pencils to make it darker in places to represent what we see. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a medium paper and we're going to take some stuff away and add some stuff to represent what we see. So I made like a little example for you. So you're going to start with a paper that's grayscale like this. I'm going to show you how to do that. Then you're going to kind of roughly draw what you're going to draw, like by erasing things, and then you can kind of make it a drawing by making other parts darker, drawing again over the erased parts, etc., etc. So we're going to do this together. We're going to draw that brick. So we'll start with drawing it in soft light. We're not going to spend all lesson drawing it. Okay, so everybody needs a paper. Grab two, please. So you're going to start. Actually, going to turn this sideways. So you're going to start by taking your charcoal, and you might find that your stick is bent. If it's bent, find one of the flat sides and put that against your paper so you're kind of creating an even mark. And then just cover most of your paper in this dark. Don't go too dark. You want to kind of medium. You're just creating a base. It makes it easier to erase, easier to work. Yep, the whole paper, all the whole drawing area, I should say. You might not cover the whole paper, so you might wind up with something that looks like this. You don't have to go all the way to the edges. We're just going to cover the entire drawing area. You're going to take this paper and fold it into something that resembles a square. And then you're going to fold one of these corners like it's a paper airplane. So, like if you've ever folded paper airplanes, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It's just a smudging tool. So you kind of fold it like a samosa style first, and then you fold paper airplane style. You're making a point. You're making a sort of a cone point.
First you have to make a square.
Yeah, so you get something that resembles a square, then you get something that looks kind of like this. So you want to go get a square, then fold one end in, fold the other end in. So you get, this is basically a giant smudge tool. That's what this is. It's a big smudge tool. And then we're going to use that. This, by the way, is called newsprint. This particular newsprint was stuffed in Amazon packages, I believe. So you don't have to go buy newsprint to do this. Okay. So now you've created your base. So I'm going to ask you that if you've done creating your base, put it down so I can see you're finished. Yeah.
Am I doing dark spots? Should I try doing it again?
No, you can keep on this page, just go fill in the lighter areas a little bit more so you can get it more even.
Okay.
So he asked a good question. He wound up with some spots that were very light and some spots that were very dark. Just if that happens, just make it darker. So maybe I decide that like I got it really dark in the middle, so I kind of want everything to be even. So kind of make it all one even color. And that's what happens if you're not using the flat side of your charcoal, or that might happen. It might also happen on your first time that you're creating a base and then not on the second time. Okay, so once you've prepared your base, I'm actually just going to lighten up this spot that I used to show. So that's the great thing about the kneaded erasers. You can actually just roll it if you want to lighten up any area. So if you look at your board, like at your base, and you find that there's spots that are too dark, you can lighten it up and then just go smudge it out again. Most people are done. Okay, so once you've created your base, you can look at the object that you're going to draw. So the angle that I'm seeing it from is, I'm not really seeing a block. So you're going to kind of roughly, you can still use it like you did last time to like get your angle and then bring it down to the paper. And I know that's the angle of one of my lines. And you can see that you've got a whole lot more room to play with now. This is the picture that I took. So I'm going to use this picture to draw. So actually, because I started drawing the lines from what I can see at this angle, so I'm actually going to take away those lines, just loosely lighten them up, and then smudge them away. That's the beauty of this technique. You can literally just smudge anything away that you don't like. Okay, so I'm going to use my eraser to kind of roughly sketch my object, because looking at my object, it's lighter than my base that I drew. I'm going to go up there, down here, and that angle, that line is at that angle. I kind of bring it down. And this is just rough for now. That line's at that angle. So I'm going to put it there. That line's at that angle. Because there's perspective going on since I took a picture, so it's not going to look like a cube actually when I'm done. That line's a little bit more angled than that, so I'm going to bring it in a bit, and then I'm going to actually redefine it on the outside so I can see where it runs. This line is pretty much straight down. Yeah?
When you're drawing with your chalk, when you're drawing the object, do you use the tip of your chalk or do you use the tip of your chalk, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can also use you should have a chalk a pencil. Did you grab a chalk pencil? Okay, let me grab you a charcoal pencil. There's a charcoal pencil for you.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so you can still use your charcoal pencil to make areas darker like you did with your regular pencil. So then I'm going to use my, I'm going to kind of measure, and I'm going to see these walls, the thickness of the walls on this. I'd say they're about a third of the inside of this block. So if I divide this, so if I take this space, I have to divide it into fifths. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's not right. So a little bit lower, just roughly. Okay, so I'd say that's about as thick as I want the walls to be. There's actually a lot going on this concrete block. You guys are like, you're gonna make us draw a concrete block? Yeah. There's a lot going on because it's got a inside space too. Inner negative space. So I'm looking at my angles. I'm starting roughly with the general, and then we're going to move towards the specific later on. So that angle of that line over there, I'm going to bring that down here. That's the angle that I'm at. And then now I can start looking at like, okay, where's my dark areas? Where's my light areas? So now I can use like my eraser. I can see this whole top part is lighter than everything else. So I can go erase. You can also, if you wanted to, on the side of your paper, you can do a little gradient. You can kind of draw and say, okay, the darkest I can go is pretty dark. I can go pitch black. So that would be 100% gray. Oh, that sound. The sound of chalk on paper sometimes just gets to me. Like nails on chalkboard, I get that like goosebumps. So that's my 100% black. And you can still use your paper as a smudging stick too. You can just use the like smaller tip of it if you wanted to for smaller areas. So that would be like a 90%, 80%, 70% maybe. That's too dark. So take some away. You also getting it? And so this would be my 50%. My 50% is my 50%. And then I'm actually going to lighten this up a little bit, just a little bit. And then I'm going to lighten the next one up a little bit more. So your hard erasers, by the way, your plastic erasers, your vinyl erasers, they're going to take more off the page than your soft erasers will. So if you want to go very light, you're going to want to use... That's okay. How dare you? If you want to go very light, you want to use the vinyl erasers. So for my very light one, and then I'm gonna, just while I'm at it, also erase this one. And then I'm going to see if I can bring this last block back to actual white. So to do that, you probably want to use your very fine eraser, which I don't have. And can I borrow this one real quick? So this one will actually take that last little bit of stuff off the paper. So I might never get it back to perfect white. Seems to be the result of this experiment. But that's a tool you can also try. You can try to just make marks on your paper and see how it turns out and how hard you have to press to kind of get the different shades. And then you can use these marks to compare it to your thing that you're drawing, your object that you're drawing. So. And you can also use this to add a little bit back in if you wanted to, especially the dirty parts. Okay, so back to drawing my brick. So I'm looking there. So the whole inside section here is darker, so I'm actually just going to darken up the whole inside section a little bit.
So it doesn't have the same light as the outside?
Yeah, but there's different qualities in this inner shadow too, so I'm just going to go the whole inner part I'm going to make darker, and then I'll still go back and erase parts of it to make it lighter, but I'm just actually going to darken up that whole area and again smudge it in. So I just want my base layer to be darker for the inside than I want it to be for the outside. And then I want my base layer for this top to be lighter than the others, because this is the lightest part of my cube. And then this wall here is kind of a gradient, so it starts a little bit lighter at the top, and the bottom is about, if I look at this versus my paper, I'd say the bottom of this side is about the shade of my 50%. And then if I look at this front plane here, the edges are actually lighter than the inside. So this isn't all the same color on my photo. This edge here is actually lighter than the middle part there. So I'm actually going to lighten up that edge a little bit. And the nice thing about this drawing technique is you can create very cool looking things very quickly. It all looks very dramatic and interesting. I'm going to look at my background too. So up here, I've got a very dark background, so I'm actually going to draw that. And you can choose whether you draw your negative space, it's called negative space, it's the background, or not. And you can change your negative space. So I'm going to decide I want to make actually dark all around the back of this to have something for it to pop out against. I'm just going to go change the settings on my phone so I don't have to keep touching the screen. So now I'm going to look, I'll worry about that later. I'm just kind of going to define the outer edge a little bit. And I think I'm going to leave that table there because I like it. I'm gonna leave. Also, again, you notice how I'm holding my charcoal? Experiment with different ways of holding your charcoal. You don't have to hold it like a pencil. Shout if you need a hand with anything too. That's what I'm here for. So I missed it looks like this edge here is a little bit sharper. So I'm gonna fill that in. There's kind of a corner there. Kind of a corner here. That's broken, like a little spot that's lighter over there. I'm kind of show this broken corner. You don't have to. You can choose to show certain details or not. This is your drawing. And now I'm going to draw this inner edge. So I can actually see part of that. There's a little bit dark there, and then it gets lighter here. So I'm going to use this eraser for that because I don't want to take off all of that darkness that I created there on purpose. So you see how I'm building from the general to the specific. I can see that my top plane isn't quite right. It's a little bit too big. But I'm not going to worry about that because I don't mind it. But if I was studying this object to draw it really beautifully, I'll know to fix that on my next drawing. So I can use now that I've kind of drawn my general, I can use my charcoal pencil to go get very specific. Like I can go draw all of these lines. So I'm actually going to no, it's okay. I'll use one that somebody's not using. I'm going to borrow your eraser pencil for a second. So I'm actually going to, there's some lines running in there. I'm going to actually draw them in with my eraser pencil. And then that value is as light as the outside, so I'm going to fill that in and make it as light as the outside. There's like a really light line running there, so I'm going to try to get that white. Yeah, they're hidden. They're hiding. So I walked away and I looked at my drawing and I can see some mistakes that I need to fix. Like this whole wall here is actually lighter than the front. So I'm actually going to lighten that up. Or I'm going to darken this up maybe. Okay, so we're not going to spend all night on this exercise. Okay. So we're going to wrap this up. Or what?
A live web stream? Can we get a live web stream?
That's asking a lot. Also, that's a mic question. So the last thing that I want to show you today is this. This is Artist's Fixative Spray. If you are doing charcoal or chalk or pencil drawings, you can lock the graphite to the paper or the chalk or the charcoal to the paper using this stuff when you're done.